And I am so thrilled to introduce our next guest as well, Tony McGrath. Theater Grand is my favorite theater in Calgary. And I've produced one theater show there. And Tony keeps saying, you got to come back. And now I really do need to come back, Tony. And he took that theater from a place of desolation to thriving. And Tony is no stranger to overcoming incredible odds. And so, Tony, we're just so thankful that you're here to share whatever you want to share on your experiences of pushing through and rising strong.
Good morning. Yeah, it's good afternoon, actually. I live and work in a basement now, so I'm never fucking sure what time of day it is anymore. I walked upstairs the other day and the sun was shining. I said, when did that happen? Anyway, I got to follow Graham, and I don't know how I do that, but I met Graham at a business event in Brooks, Alberta one time. He was speaking out there, and Marcy and I were 2 of the 8 in the audience. It was a great presentation, but I have nothing prepared for this, and I never do. So I'm gonna talk a little bit from the heart here to the best of my ability. And I first want to talk about the arts. And I know everybody's going to groan a little at this point, because the arts is one of those things that we as a city and as a nation consider a luxury. And I did. I'd never worked in the arts and I'd never run a theatre. Where I grew up, like, art was soccer. That was literally it in the area of Birmingham I grew up in. So I've developed a very deep understanding of people in the arts over the last year and a half. And I want to pay some respect to them in the current pandemic. Across the planet on a daily basis in the news, you will see artists giving their skill and time and enthusiasm for free. Nothing asked in return, no promotion, no marketing, no money, no grants, no nothing. They're on their balconies playing violins and cellos or singing. We've seen our own CPO here in a face-off with the symphony up in Edmonton, and that's spread nationally now. We see artists constantly now online playing from their living room. And these people are all adding to our mental well-being for free and without being asked. And I've seen that consistently across the arts over the time I've been blessed to work there. And business generally doesn't treat the arts terribly well. They'll ask our artists in this city to perform for free based on the exposure that they're going to get, which is bullshit. You don't ask a web developer to do that. You don't ask a restaurateur to give his food for free for the exposure, but they get asked regularly. And I see them across the planet actually stepping up in large numbers as organizations and individuals to help us feel a little bit better in all of this. So that's the first thing I want to say is kudos to our artists in Calgary, our arts organizations, and to artists across the planet. I can't play anything. I can dance really well, James and Graham. I'm all for the dance off, and I think, Connie, we should do it at the Grand when we reopen. We'll get these boys on the stage. You can give them a little training in hip hop, and we should do it. I've got the gold chains and the beanie hats available, so we can do that. So the Grand, 12th of March, our event started cancelling, and by the 13th of March, we were done, literally. So in a few hours, we went from thriving to closed. Our revenue completely disappeared for the foreseeable future. So I'm pretty much a team of 2 now at the theatre, and we are a business. and we're in the business of art, and we put over $1 million a year into the economy as one theatre in this city. So, you know, it's not, oh, what a shame they've closed. When we close, it impacts contractors, artists, bar managers, our ticketing staff, our ticketing company. So it has a significant impact in this city. So you know, it's not a, oh, what a shame we closed. We're like many other organizations, just like Toolshed. When we close, the impact is wider than just our staff and just our theatre. So it happened very quickly and very deeply, almost within hours. And I'm a little more vintage than a lot of people in business. This is my 4th major business cycle in my career. And they've all been gruesome in their own way. Marcy and I, we built an insurance company from scratch here in Calgary, and it was federally approved. And in 2008, we were out in Toronto and we pitched, and a major company had decided to back us. And that was in September. And I think pretty much as we were flying home from Toronto to Calgary, the world collapsed. And we never heard from those guys again. So I'm kind of used, like Graham, to, you know, bad news and rejection is just part of your life as an entrepreneur and in business. It's just one of those things. So, but I've never seen anything as quick as this, and with so much uncertainty as this, because business cycles, you can always say, well, it's winter now, but spring always comes after winter. Might take a little longer, but this has created a real air of uncertainty of what we're even going to be doing or what we're going to look like after this. So it is different. And, you know, for our younger business people and our younger employees, this may be your first major business cycle. And just to put it in context, it's the worst I've ever seen. So I think I look at large businesses like Shaw, and I love Catherine. I've spoken with her on a panel before. They make me feel totally inadequate as a leader, because I got no contingency plans. Like, I got nothing. I got no plans on any level other than, oh shit, we've got no revenue next week. And I'm kind of like Graham in that way. So, oh my God, like, we don't have an emergency plan to put into action other than my staff got laid off. That's pretty much it. I need to reduce revenue like yesterday, expense like yesterday. So I do think this is a very unique opportunity for us as businesses if we choose to take it. Because I think right now it's a chance for our business to kind of reimagine and pivot. We do it, you know, it's a chance for me as a leader to do a bit of an inventory in a positive and negative way of like, where are we at? What have we been doing? Because very often in the throes of running a business, all strategy gets thrown out of the door. All sorts of planning gets thrown out of the door. You do a 2-day retreat once a year. You build a strategy plan and put it in a drawer. In fact, as a consultant, that's what I've been doing for a living for quite a long time. But this is actually a real chance to look at the strengths and weaknesses in your business. And I think you can actually sit down as a leader and draft a basic strategic plan around what are you going to look like when you come out of this. And fully acknowledging you don't know what the circumstances are going to look like. But, you know, I very often find I just don't have time for that shit. I don't have time to work on strategy. I don't have time to think of anything other than the sump pump in the basement isn't working and the alarm system isn't working today. And oh shit, we've got a show tomorrow. Like that's pretty much running day to day. And I think a lot of businesses are like that. So I always look in envy at businesses that actually do any planning. And I quite often think, nah, I'm sure they don't really do that. I'm sure they just say they do that. But I know Catherine does. So I get envious. And I think these principles also apply to us on a human level. I think it's a good time to do an inventory of me personally, you know, my strengths and weaknesses, my character flaws, the things that I do consistently that piss people off, working on my body language a little bit. You know, it's great being positive and enthusiastic and motivational. But, you know, being a leader is it's a fucking lonely business. And I know you leaders out there understand that. There are times when there's nobody asks me how I'm doing. And there's nobody who checks in and says, hey, Tony, you know, when you say that, I don't react well to it. So it's a good time for me to look at my shortcomings in my communication skills and just the way I handle myself in life. And I think there is a real danger for us right now. This is a gift of time. And there's a real danger we get to the end of 12 or 8 weeks or however long this takes and we go, shit, I just didn't use that time well. You know, I spent my whole time worrying. And I spent a bit of time mentoring young entrepreneurs, and I was talking to an incredible young lady yesterday who runs a travel company, and we talked about just don't waste this time. Don't throw it away worrying about what the future looks like. Embrace the uncertainty. And bizarrely, I spoke at Creative Mornings 2 weeks before this happened, and I talked about embracing uncertainty because the whole concept of certainty in our life is absurd. It doesn't exist. Like it literally, I don't know literally whether I'm going to be alive this afternoon. Like my business at the Grand closed in a couple of hours. I didn't expect that. We were pottering along quite nicely, thank you very much. So embracing uncertainty and using this time well is really important. If you don't meditate, try it for a minute. Breathe. If you don't like the word meditation, call it breathing. Stop and breathe for a minute, and next day do 2 minutes. Just start the practice of that. And I hate the cliche stuff around mindfulness and meditation. Like I'm really crap at it. Like I mean to do it, and then I get mad that I don't have a meditation practice, which kind of defeats the whole purpose in the first place. But I've learned I can breathe from time to time, and the periods of breathing literally start to grow a little bit, and suddenly I'm controlling my breath a little longer. If you want to call it meditation or mindfulness, I'm happy with that. But I'm actually really crap at the discipline of those things. So, but the least thing I want to do is get mad about not having the practice of having a peaceful meditation. So, I think if you're not a fitness freak, and like I don't mind keeping fit if it's not too much hard work. You know, I'm one of those guys who looks at another fella on a treadmill thinking I might get a six-pack by not doing it. So, but I think it's a good time to start a bit of a fitness practice. You know, even if it's walking, and I love walking. I never miss doing 10,000 steps a day, and then I start walking from home again, and I stop doing it. It doesn't make any sense. So I think there's a lot we can do right now in very small ways that add up to a bigger sum of wellness. You know, and I'm not really suggesting that we all become gurus of meditation, because that's the last thing I am. There's a great book I learned from as a leader, and I was an infantry officer when I was younger, and I learned a lot from the military about empathy and looking after my people, which sounds almost contradictory to the whole principle of the military. But Simon Sinek wrote a great book, and it's getting old now, I know, but it's called Leaders Eat First. And that was literally the principle that we were taught leadership. It was, before I went to bed, I needed to look after my men. Were they fed? Were their feet in good condition? We were the infantry. We marched on our feet. Have they got ammunition? Do they know what they're supposed to do next day? Are they warm and comfortable? Is next day planned out? And I think that's a great principle for any leader. And we've heard it from all of the leaders who've spoken before me. You've got to be well. You need to make sure your feet are in good condition and that you're fed, because you've got to be an example to your people. And one of the principles we were also taught was that my people as an infantry officer were going to look to me when we were under fire and in chaos. Because all the planning in the world means nothing when the bullets start to fly. The radios don't work, we got the wrong ammunition, we're in the wrong place at the wrong time, facing the wrong way, and generally that was my fault because I couldn't read a map. But these are essentials to you as a leader right now. making sure you look after you so you're in a position to lead. So I'm really, like, I'm no expert in any of this. I have fucked up more times in my life than I care to remember, personally and in business. But there are things that I've learned over the years that keep coming back to me. And it's in these circumstances when they become most important.
Isn't
I got
that
to do a podcast with Dave Kelly and Jim Button not very long ago in the theatre. We call them Conversations from the Grand, and I got no grand right now. But, two amazing men, and Graham knows Jim Button really well, and he has health challenges. If you speak to Jim, you would never know that. He feels it's his obligation to his family and to Calgary to look after himself, even though he has a diagnosis that is fairly dire. And Dave Kelly, like, just him and Jim have been doing online shows during COVID, listening sometime. And Michelle Cameron Coulter's been doing the same. Like, there are Calgarians out there doing shit for free. And I think, you know, I had a great poem to read at the end of this, but I've run out of time, I think. So,
well, you know what, Tony, we would, I just really have appreciated your vulnerability and your
yeah,
honesty. That's actually why I invite you anywhere I get a chance to invite you. I invite you because you do share from the heart, and
yeah.
you lead from the heart. But and the things that you've said here are just so important. And
Can I take a minute with it's from Roosevelt. I promise you it takes a minute, but I think it's really relevant today.
sure.
Okay. So this is Roosevelt, as we know, was a leader in a time of the worst possible circumstances. So he actually spoke, and he said, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least failed while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those whose cold and timid souls neither know victory nor defeat." That's it.